I shouldn't have gone inside. If I'd listened to my gut that night, maybe things would have turned out differently. Maybe I'd still sleep through the night without hearing those footsteps in my dreams. But when someone you care about disappears, logic stops mattering. You do things you swore you never would. And that's how I ended up standing in front of the rusted double doors of the old Ashwood Police Detention Center. Flashlight in one hand, a crumpled photo in the other, on a cold, wet Tuesday night. His name was Adam. We'd been friends since high school, the kind of friendship that survives everything: distance, time, even those stretches of life where you don't talk for months. A week ago, he called me sounding terrified. He said he was following a lead on a story, something about police corruption, a missing evidence room, and a secret wing that wasn't supposed to exist. That was the last time anyone heard from him. The police said he probably left town. His parents said he was on a trip, but I knew Adam. He wouldn't vanish without telling me. The last ping from his phone was near Ashwood, a police station shut down 10 years ago after a scandal no one wanted to talk about. Locals whispered about what happened there: missing inmates, falsified reports, officers who retired overnight. They called it cursed, and they said there was a cell block 0, a basement wing that never appeared on blueprints. It was almost midnight when I parked across the street. Rain drizzled through the glow of a flickering streetlight. The whole place loomed like a tomb. Windows boarded, brick walls cracked and discolored from decades of neglect. But something about it didn't feel abandoned. The silence was too thick. The air was too still. I pushed the side door open with a groan of rusted hinges. The air inside was damp and stale, carrying that faint metallic scent of long-dried blood and mold. My flashlight beam danced over peeling paint, old booking desks, shattered glass. "Adam?" I called, my voice echoing down the empty hall. Nothing. Just the slow drip of water somewhere deeper inside. I checked my phone. No signal. Figures. I marked the exit in my head and kept walking. The first floor looked like any other station. Rows of desks, a holding area with a dozen rusted bars, interrogation rooms with one-way mirrors cracked like spiderwebs. But every few steps, I saw things that didn't make sense. A chair still pulled out from a desk, a coffee mug on the floor, a jacket slung over the back of a chair. No squatters, no signs of forced entry. It was as if the place had been abandoned mid-shift. The deeper I went, the colder it got. By the time I reached the stairwell, my breath was visible. That's when I saw it, a smear of fresh mud on the wall. Someone had been here. Recently, I followed the stairs down. The basement was worse. Rows of cells lined a long corridor, each one filled with shadows that seemed to lean closer when I walked by. My light caught something scratched into one of the walls. Dozens of tally marks, and beneath them, a single word carved deep. Forgotten. I tried not to think about it. Halfway down the corridor, I stopped. I could swear I heard footsteps, light, deliberate, just behind me. I spun around. Nothing. The hallway was empty. "Adam?" I called again, my voice shaking more than I wanted. Silence. I pressed on until I reached the end of the corridor where the official blueprint said there should be a concrete wall. But there wasn't. Instead, there was a heavy steel door, painted the same color as the wall to hide it. A small rusted plaque above it read, "Cell Block 0, authorized personnel." Only I felt my heartbeat in my throat. This had to be it. This was where Adam had gone. The door was locked, of course, but the frame was loose, and after a few desperate shoves with my shoulder, the metal screeched and gave way. Inside, the air was colder, older, and wrong. The hallway was narrower here, the lights completely gone. Only my flashlight cut through the dark. The cells were different too. Smaller, no beds, no toilets. Just bare concrete and heavy chains bolted to the walls. Most were empty, But not all. The second cell on the left still had a chair bolted to the floor. A leather strap dangled from the armrest, frayed with age. And there, on the wall behind it, were words scrawled in red paint, or maybe not paint. They never left. I stepped back, heart hammering. A sound echoed down the hall, a metallic clang, like a door closing. But when I turned around, the steel door I'd forced open was shut. I ran back and pulled at the handle. It didn't budge. I was locked in. Medium shot of the white male, 30-year-old man wearing casual clothes suitable for urban exploration, appearing anxious and determined. I slammed my shoulder against the door again and again, but it didn't even rattle. Whoever, or whatever, had shut it knew I was down here, and they wanted it that way. My flashlight shook in my hands as I turned back to face the hallway. The darkness seemed to press closer now, heavier somehow, like the air itself didn't want me there. Adam? My voice cracked on his name this time. If you can hear me, it's me. It's Jack. I'm here. The silence swallowed my words whole. I forced myself to move forward. The corridor stretched deeper than I'd realized, curving slightly as if this part of the building wasn't supposed to exist. Every cell door I passed was sealed except one. Its iron bars were twisted and bent outward, like something had forced its way out. My instincts screamed at me to turn around, but I pushed forward. I needed to know. The next chamber opened into what must have been an old interrogation room. A single metal table sat in the center, dust-covered, surrounded by overturned chairs. But what stopped me cold was the wall. It was plastered with photographs, hundreds of them, curling with age, some stained dark. They were all mugshots. But none of the names or numbers were familiar. Most had no names at all. And then I saw it. Adam. His picture was near the bottom, pinned in a crooked line of newer photos. His eyes were wide, terrified, his hair a mess. But it was him. Someone had taken this recently. I staggered back, bile rising in my throat. That meant he had been here. Maybe still was. Suddenly, something crashed in the hallway. It wasn't a rat or the building settling. It was heavy, deliberate. I killed my light instinctively, plunging the room into darkness. My pulse roared in my ears. Then I heard it. Slow, deliberate footsteps, moving closer. They stopped just outside the doorway. I held my breath. The footsteps resumed, this time moving away. I waited 30 seconds before switching the light back on. The hallway was empty, but on the wall opposite the door, someone had scrawled something new, fresh, wet, and still dripping. Run? I didn't need to be told twice. I bolted down the hallway, deeper into cell block 0, praying for another exit. The corridor narrowed until I reached a heavy reinforced door, half open and rusted. Behind it was a stairwell leading further down, deeper than the basement should have gone. I hesitated. The air from below was colder, damper, carrying the faint metallic smell of old blood. But if Adam was alive, he was down there. I descended. The staircase ended in a corridor with numbered doors. C1, C2, C3. These weren't cells. They looked more like storage units, each with reinforced steel and small viewing slots at eye level. Most were sealed shut, but the one at the end, C7, was ajar. I pushed it open. The room inside was bare, except for a single chair and a tape recorder sitting on a table. A thick leather strap was bolted to the floor, worn smooth as if someone had struggled against it countless times. My hand hovered over the recorder, then pressed play. A man's voice crackled to life. Calm, authoritative. Subject 23 refuses to cooperate. It's been 9 days since intake. They still deny knowledge of the incident. Standard conditioning will continue. Observation is ongoing. A second voice, a man's hoarse and terrified, screamed in the background. My stomach twisted. That voice. I'd know it anywhere. It was Adam. I yanked the tape out and pocketed it. He was here. He'd been a prisoner. Maybe he still was. A sudden noise snapped my attention. A metallic bang followed by footsteps above me. Multiple footsteps. Whoever was here knew I was too. I turned back to leave, but the door to C7 was no longer ajar. It was closed. I pulled on it, locked. "Hey, hello," I shouted, pounding on the steel. "Is anyone out there?" Silence. Then a voice, soft, hoarse, and close. "You shouldn't have come." I froze. The voice came from inside the room. I spun, flashlight beam slicing across the walls. Nothing. Empty. Then, behind me, the sound of metal scraping. Slow, deliberate. Something was being dragged across the floor. The corner of the room was darker than the rest. Too dark, like the shadows themselves were thicker there. And then, they moved. Something shifted in that darkness. Tall, thin, almost human, but wrong. Its limbs seemed too long, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. It took a step forward, dragging a chain behind it. I stumbled backward, slamming against the door. My mind screamed that this was impossible. It was a trick of the light, a hallucination. But the chain scraped closer. "You're not supposed to see us," it whispered. The light flickered once, twice, and when it steadied, the room was empty again. The door clicked. I didn't think. I just ran. I bolted up the stairwell, heart hammering, every instinct telling me I was being followed. I didn't dare look back. When I reached the top of the stairs, I turned a corner and froze. The hallway I'd come from was gone. Instead of a narrow corridor with cells on either side, I stood in a long, straight hallway lined with identical metal doors, none of which I'd seen before. Each one was labeled only with a number and a small red light above it. Most lights were off. A few blinked faintly. I tried the nearest door. Locked. The next, locked. But at the far end, one light glowed steady red. The door beneath it stood open. I should have turned around. I should have found another way. But I didn't. I stepped inside. I stepped through the door, flashlight trembling in my hand. The room was empty. Almost. It smelled damp and metallic, and the walls were scratched with words I couldn't fully make out in the dim light. Then I saw it. A small pile of belongings on the floor, a backpack, a coat, and a pair of sneakers. Adam's. My stomach dropped. He had been here. Maybe still was. I dropped to my knees, rifling through the bag, and found a notebook. Inside, pages were filled with frantic handwriting. Dates, names, warnings. If anyone finds this, do not trust the staff. There's something they hide. Cell block 0. They don't want anyone to know. The notebook trembled in my hands as I read. My mind raced. I'd stumbled into something far bigger than a missing person case. I was inside a place no one should have survived. And Adam had left a trail, one that led me deeper into the building. A sudden noise made me jump. A soft whisper from the corner of the room. "You shouldn't be here." I spun, flashlight beam cutting across the walls. Shadows stretched unnaturally, almost moving on their own. The air felt thick, heavy, like it was pressing against my chest. My pulse throbbed in my ears. Then I heard movement footsteps, dragging slowly across the floor, but coming from nowhere I could see. I backed up, nearly knocking over the pile of belongings. I needed to get out, but I couldn't leave him behind. Not yet. Not when I knew he was alive. I followed the faintest sound of movement down a narrow service corridor. Walls peeling and pipes overhead, groaning with age. The further I went, the colder it became, the shadows darker, the whispers more insistent. Then I saw it, a cell at the end of the hall. Its door was ajar, light spilling faintly into the corridor. Inside, A figure sat in the corner, small, curled up, trembling. "Adam." "Jack?" he whispered, his voice hoarse, almost a ghost of itself. I ran to him, grabbing his hands. "I'm here. I've got you. We're getting out." His eyes darted to the shadows behind me. They're everywhere. They watch. You can't trust anyone. Before I could respond, the door slammed shut behind me with a deafening bang. The walls seemed to vibrate. The lights flickered and went out completely, leaving us in pitch black. Adam screamed, and I felt his grip tighten on my wrist. Something moved in the dark, slow, deliberate, close. I couldn't see it, but I could hear it. Breathing, dragging, whispers layered on whispers. "You shouldn't be here?" I fumbled for my phone, trying to use its weak flashlight. It flickered, then stabilized. In the dim circle of light, I saw them. Figures. Too many to count, pale, thin, hunched, just beyond the edge of my beam. Their eyes glinted in the light. They didn't move at first. They just watched. And then, as if on cue, they started moving toward us. I pulled Adam up, clutching the notebook in one hand and flashlight in the other. "This way!" I shouted, sprinting down the corridor. The figures followed, silent but relentless, their movements unnerving, jerky, unnatural. We turned corner after corner, the layout of the wing changing as we went. Doors appeared where there shouldn't be doors. Stairwells led to nowhere. The building itself seemed alive, rearranging to trap us. Finally, after what felt like hours, we burst into a wider room. A holding area, rusted bars, peeling paint, but something was different. A faint light came from a vent high above. I helped Adam climb up and out through the opening. He pulled himself onto the roof of the abandoned station, and I followed. We collapsed onto the wet shingles, gasping, drenched, shivering. Behind us, the building was silent, too silent. We didn't speak much. We didn't need to. We had survived partially. The station still held its secrets. The whispers, the shadows, the figures. We had seen them, but we hadn't truly understood them yet. As the first light of dawn crept over the city, we finally slid down the side of the building and ran toward the street. The world outside looked normal, mundane, safe. But we both knew it wasn't. Cell Block 0 was still there, waiting. Hidden, alive, and hungry for anyone who stumbled inside. And I knew, whether anyone believed it or not, that one day someone else would enter, and the shadows would be waiting. I didn't sleep that morning. Even after escaping, nothing felt right. The streets were too quiet, the daylight too bright. Every shadow I passed seemed heavier, like it was watching me. Adam and I stuck together. We retraced her steps, desperate to understand what had pulled us into that place. But every trace of Cell Block 0 had been wiped clean. No records, no blueprints, no reports. As far as the city was concerned, it never existed. But we knew better. And that night, we went back. The rain was falling again when we slipped through the side alley. The door creaked open with almost no resistance, like the building was waiting for us. The corridors were darker than before. Dead lights, thick air, silence so deep it pressed against my chest. We followed the notes Adam had written before he vanished. Hidden stairwells, secret doors. This time, we weren't wandering blindly. And when we reached the door labeled Cell Block 0, the whispers started again. But they were different now, structured, almost intelligent. Return, see, pay attention. Down in the basement, the air felt alive. And that's when Adam found something new in his notebook. Names, dates, medical procedures. They hadn't just imprisoned people here. They'd experimented on them. Their minds, their bodies. And the things we'd seen, those shadows, they weren't ghosts. They were what was left. broken fragments of the people who never escaped. One of them stepped out of the darkness, tall, twisted, head tilted too far to one side. It didn't attack. It just watched. That's when I realized the truth. It wasn't fear that drew them closer. It was attention. The more we noticed them, the stronger they became. We moved carefully, flashlights down, hearts pounding, but the shadows followed. More of them, dozens, maybe hundreds. And then, right behind me, a voice, barely human. Stay. Forever. I froze, but Adam pulled me forward. We ran, up the stairwell, through the empty offices, bursting into the night. Rain had stopped. Fog rolled through the streets, and behind us, silence. We survived again, but nothing has felt normal since. Adam still hears whispers when the lights go out. I still see shapes moving where there shouldn't be any. The police said there's no record of Ashwood Station. No cell block 0. Just an urban legend. But I know what we saw. And I know this. The shadows remember us. And one day, they'll be waiting